Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Ref the District. The internet connection on my end is a little shoddy, guys. So if there was a pause there, that's all entirely on me. I'm Nathan Perry. That's the Stoner. That's Trev. And we're bringing to you episode 127 of Ref the District. It is the doldrums of the off season when it comes to NFL, but they are still plenty of topics for us to talk about, and we will be talking about them here in this episode. Of course, we stream live every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, which means it's 6:30 here in Oklahoma for me. And we have been bringing you content on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays as well at 7:30. So make sure you check those out and let us know what you're thinking of those daily Commanders updates. For today's episode, we're going to be talking about Hard Knocks not coming to DC. Looks like it's going to be the Jets. During the game, we'll talk about Bienimey, his role, Howell's quiet confidence, and Jahan Dotson and his upcoming season, all in the game. I forgot to mention also in the cool down, we'll be talking about Richmond, Virginia as well. Stoner might have a few things to say about that. And then here in the warm-up, presented to you by Don't Sleep Energy. Head out to dontsleepenergy.com. Use the code RefTheDistrict. Get yourself 10% off your entire order. It is the energy drink of choice for the Ref the District team. The sugar-free is absolutely great. DMV company, you should try them out, and you can try them out with getting a 10% discount code there. But here on the warm-up, brought to you by Don't Sleep Energy, it's Gibby calling out the fans, gentlemen, in a good way, right? Normally, this has been over the last probably 5 years when they've called out. We've had Jonathan Allen call fans out last year, right? Keep that same energy. It's kind of been a little bit aggressive, and this one seems a little bit more hopeful. As Gibby posted on his Instagram, there should be no excuse for the fans to pop out now, and y'all know what I mean. Trev, do you know what he means?
Maybe because football's coming back? No, of course I know what it means. It means no more Snyder. Goodbye, Dan. Yeah, that's what it means. Because, you've had the diehard Washington Redskins football team, Commander fans that refuse to buy a ticket, refuse to watch, refuse to attend, just because of the man in the ownership seat. So once all that goes, he can officially clears out his office and Josh Harris and his gang comes in and takes over, maybe we'll get those same fans who were not coming at first can start to come back, at least start watching or something, or like Antonio Gibson says, pop out. So
let's assume, Trev and Nathan, let's assume that training camp goes as planned. Nothing too major, nothing too, nothing bad, no major injuries and all that, knock on wood. And you have the whole thing with the promise of Sam Howell, the defense is the way it is, a new ownership group, all this other stuff. Week one against not even probably, the worst team in the NFL at home and FedEx against the Cardinals. It should be 72,000. What is the current
max capacity?
I would have to look probably under 70 there. Now. It's like 68. It should be 65,000 Commanders fans in FedEx.
67.
67? Okay.
Yeah.
65,000 Commanders fans screaming their heads off at FedEx Field week one.
I agree.
It should be. So Gibby's right. We don't have any reason to not be there and to be completely supporting this team unless something crazy happens before then, which we don't expect that. I'm looking forward to week one, and he's right. We better have that place packed.
Yeah, no disagreeing there. By the way, the FedEx comment made me look it up because I remember this fact here. From 2004 until 2010, FedEx Field was actually the biggest stadium.
Yeah, it had like 90,000.
And then if 91,000.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They have this particular article says 62,000 now, but I mean, the Google did say 67 when we looked it up, but still going from 91,000 down to in the 60s is just abysmal. And this is exactly what Gibby is talking about. Antonio Gibson is no fool here. He knows exactly why people haven't been showing up, and partly, and I mean, a large portion, I do want to stress this, a large portion is because the team just hasn't been good for 2-3 decades.
Yes.
Now, a part of that reason, and what he's alluding to, is that Dan Snyder is gone and Josh Harris is coming in, and those people that have been waiting for some kind of good news and, auspicious sign, this is it. Come out. And Stone, you're absolutely right. The Cardinals look like they're ready to tank for Caleb Williams. They've got an injured QB that they owe a lot of money. They shipped off they cut one of the top wide receivers in the league, shipped off some other top players, and they're starting fresh. So it looks like they're in the tank for Caleb Williams, which means this should be an exciting game for Washington as we see Sam Howell work. We see what's the offense is going to look like under Eric Bieniemy. So show up. If you are available, if you're capable, go ahead and get out there and show up to FedEx and support this team and cheer them on like our button that I pressed earlier on the Josh Harris chant.
What's the word we always use, Nathan, that we've used from the beginning of our show is hope.
Hope.
That's what every fan wants from their team at the beginning of the year. And so this team will have that, at least at the beginning. They'll have that hope, again, with the Sam Howell effect and the Eric Bieniemy effect that we're going to talk about later. And, again, the bad team and the new owner. And maybe, just maybe, and we'll talk about this later in the cool down as well, maybe Hard Knocks, if possibly in season. There's just going to be a lot of positivity and a lot of hope going into at least week 1. So Gibby's right. We got no excuse to not show up. What is it? Not pop off? Pop
out. So we got several people in the chat here. We got Michael in early. We got Gus Bus. Allison is here as well. And Allison is asking, is FedEx going to get any renovations anytime soon? They actually are getting renovations. They're going to get a bigger screen. I think it's $100,000 worth of renovations that they're working on.
That's it?
Kind of already planned. Yeah, it's not a lot of money, and most of it's going to be put into that screen. But I mean, they're not trying to put too much money into FedEx when they know that they're going to be gone in under a decade. Like they're just they're chugging along. 2027 is when that lease is technically up, but it's looking like early 2030s. Oh yeah, it's already being held up with Band-Aids there. So
look, let's make sure those railings are strapped down so that fans don't fall over railings and push railings over. Make sure that the leaks from the bathrooms are fixed. And I know when we were there in that suite, and we paid for a suite, the internal audio, the audio that you get from announcements it was terrible.
That's another one of those fixes. So the PA system's being worked on, the screens being worked on, so that should be pretty good. Yeah, I don't care if it's sewage water or just rusty piped water. I don't want that on me as I'm about to watch a game. None. Yeah, no water being poured on me would be a great day at FedEx there. Gus Bus saying, if we lose to Arizona, considering the circumstances, we need to tank for Caleb. Now, we are not pro tank in this particular group.
Yeah.
I am pro Caleb Williams. That would be an amazing talent to get. However, that would also mean that our season has gone amazingly bad.
Let me ask this question about, tanking Caleb and losing to Arizona and on and on. But what pick was Washington in 2012 when they ended up moving up to number 2 for RG3? What pick did they have? Was it
6, I think?
Like 6, so it wasn't even that far back, right? So it was still, maybe they were coming off a 3-13 season in 2011, I'm guessing. That's almost 15 years, more than 10 years ago. I can't remember. But you have to be.
It was 6, by the way. Yep, Gus Bus confirmed it. Our statistician, Gus Bus, in there.
Thank you, Gus. You have to be historically in the Washington franchise, historically bad to have a chance for Caleb, unless you're willing to give up, mortgage your future to go up to get Caleb Williams. Because if he is as good as advertised, you do have to give up 5 years worth of number ones in order to move up to get him. So it's either that or you're going to be 2-15, and nobody wants 2-15. Nobody wants to, unless I would do 2-15 if you promised me we would get Caleb Williams. You can go 2-15 and still not get Caleb Williams.
Yeah, easily.
Because if somebody goes 1-16 and they got the first pick, and even if they have a quarterback already, then they could just trade out to somebody else to move up. You know what I mean? It's
if Washington's 2-15, likely they'd be picking 2 there, and this would be just like 2012 where you have Andrew Luck and then RG3.
Sure.
And a lot of people like Caleb Williams, but also Drake May from North Carolina has a lot of buzz around him. And there's a couple other quarterbacks out there, but I have faith, and we all know with me, I am absolutely a howler.
Yes, sir.
So that part, I don't think we're going to be. I think we're going to be too good to get any of those guys, and I don't necessarily think we're going to see. Now, I'm with Michael, and that Harris is going to get a free pass this year. I think a lot of people are going to get a free pass throughout this season, as far as where the fans kind of target their disdain for, depending on how the season goes.
Oh, okay.
But for me, I think there's a lot to be kind of, like you said, Stoner, hopeful about and excited about. And some of that is surrounding our young quarterback, Sam Howell, but a lot of it is also targeted towards probably our biggest acquisition of the offseason in Eric Bienimey. And we're going to be talking about him and Howell and Jahan Dotson all in the game. Stick with us.
Say goodbye to the generic face wash on your counter, because Caldera Lab is here to save the day when it comes to your skin. Backed by a leading clinical trial where 9 out of 10 men experienced healthier and visibly improved skin, Caldera Lab has the tools to unlock your best first impression and confidence. See for yourself why so many men trust Caldera Lab for their skincare needs.
All right, that is Caldera Lab, one of our sponsors. You can head out there and get yourself a discount at Caldera Lab. Their products are fantastic, made for men and skin. Your skin is super important, not just because for us that we're on camera and these are the money makers, but because it will help you stay youthful throughout. Caldera Lab, head out there and get yourself a discount. I am totally winging the timing on my returns here, as I have kind of cobbled together a location within my in-laws' house. And so hopefully that timing was fairly close. I do want to take this time to show my appreciation for my in-laws for housing us. I have made the move down to Oklahoma, as I am now retired Air Force. Officially, it'll be Saturday. But thanks to Sharon and Jerry for housing our family as we wait for our house to be set up. And thanks for allowing me to take this 1 bedroom and completely move everything around and hook. I stopped shy of dragging a cable all the way through the house to hook up directly to the router. So I do appreciate them.
That's what I do.
Putting up with me and allowing us to do this. So a big shout out to the Schaefer family and allowing the Perry family to stay with them as we
What's
transition.
it like in Oklahoma, weather-wise?
It's too bloody hot. I'll tell you that much. It's 100 degrees right now. It's just too dang on hot. And I do not miss this heat. I miss the 60-degree weather we left in Maryland, but we've already ran into 2 snakes. Nothing too big. One was a garter snake and the other one was a hog nose. So nothing dangerous for humans, but still, they need to be repositioned elsewhere.
What does that mean? What does repositioned elsewhere mean?
It means that they are no longer on the Schaefer premises.
Okay.
All right. Are they still somewhere on this earth? Or
I'm sure we're all still somewhere on this earth.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
I'm not trying to get PETA on me here. Okay.
No, you guys, I just saw in the comments, back to the whatever.
The actual content, sure.
Yeah. Allison asked, should Leaky Boat Rivera, which I think is funny, Riverboat, that's a nice play on that, get a free pass? Because you said before we went to break, everybody gets a free pass for
I said a lot of people are going to get a free pass. I think
Rivera, one of those you think? I don't think he is.
No. Ron Rivera needs to potentially go double-digit victories to secure his job here in the future, and I think that is, honestly, I mean, even if they just make the playoffs, it's not enough. It needs to be make the playoffs with a strong showing and potentially win a couple games or one at least one game in the playoffs. You know, if you're a wild card, if you go in as the wild card, you're going to have to win that wild card game. Otherwise, history says new owners want their people in. Yeah. And if it's kind of Denzel Washington, you know, remember the Titans, right? Like they're just looking for that one reason to just boot you out. So you just got to keep winning. Otherwise, that's going to be the excuse. And I mean, we see this in the NBA a lot, NHL, which the NHL draft is going on right now. We'll see if we don't have an update for our Capitals when it comes to that. But yeah, I mean, they get rid of winning coaches all the time. And the NFL hasn't quite done that. They try to give a coach a few years to make mistakes, build their roster. We're a built roster at this point. I mean, it's still potentially missing a QB, but there's no excuses at this point, year 4, to not have be at the point that you would want a new hire or new owner to be like, yep, this is my guy. We're sticking with him.
Yeah. So who's getting the free pass that you mentioned? Who are you saying gets a free pass this season?
I would probably, I'd say Eric Bienimey is he's the topic du jour for our game session here. But I mean, if Sam Howell turns out not to be the guy, I still would have Eric Bienimey be an offensive coordinator. I think that, you know, I mean, if he scores, I mean, how many years did Scott Turner get? And how many times did I back Scott Turner saying, no, I like some of the play things. He just hasn't put it together. Eric Bienimey has a track record that is very successful. And so he has a down year here in Washington, and Washington scores like 21 points per game or something like that, which is an improvement over last year, but not necessarily world breaker. No, he's one who I would give a free pass to and be like, okay, maybe Sam Howell isn't the guy, or maybe we're missing some pieces. Line isn't the best. So go out there and get him some tools to be successful. Now, he has a lot of great tools here. The running back room is average to above average in the NFL. The wide receiver room would be, in my opinion, a top 10 group. I mean, they have a top 15 guy. They have a budding second year guy, and they have Curtis Samuel, who can be a top 50 guy. 25. Like, I mean, that's a good room. Curtis Samuel, top 5. Okay, let's not get 25. Too carried away.
He said 25.
25. Yeah. I wouldn't
even give him 25.
I think top 50's wide receiver would be good for him. I think Jahan Dotson could get to top 25.
That I will give you. All right. So the question then is, you're saying Eric Bieniemy will get a pass. So we figure out Sam Howell's not the guy, or maybe even he's okay. Like you said, they go up maybe a couple points per game on average, but they go 7-10, and the new owner says, all right, we got to bring in a whole new. You think Eric Bieniemy survives that, and everybody around him gets fired?
Maybe not here in Washington. Maybe not here in Washington, but I think enough teams would be like, okay, let's bring him on, and he would get a second chance somewhere else.
For sure.
But
yeah, for sure, he would get a spot somewhere else.
Why not make him the head coach though?
Ooh,
because that never happens.
You never say never, Stoner.
But one guy, and then
we've only had Dan Snyder. Okay, we don't know anything can happen.
Well, I don't mean just here. I mean in the history of sports teams in any league, to where they clean house with all the coaches because of a bad year or a bad bunch of years.
Wasn't Jim Zorn a hire from within?
No. He was a special teams coach from.
Now you're going to make me look it up.
Oh, no. Jim Zorn was absolutely not. And by the way, he was like the 5th choice.
Oh, yeah, no, it was so far down, which is why I thought that he was. I remember him being.
No. Not
on
even.
that.
He came from maybe it was even
Gus
Seattle.
Bus says no.
But
No,
yeah,
Gus
he was
Bus says
I
no.
know that one. Sure. He was never. But anyway, that just doesn't happen. You don't fire everybody except one guy and promote him.
Seattle Seahawks quarterbacks coach,
Yeah, it
by
was
the way, is
Seattle.
where he was.
Yeah. So that just doesn't happen.
Okay, fine.
But I get the sentiment that maybe he shows something. But
This is why I remembered it being an internal hire. I remember there was something funky about it besides the fact that Jim Zorn was like the fifth option. But Jim Zorn was hired because he went from quarterback coach to the OC here.
yeah.
They couldn't find anybody. No one wanted to work for Dan Snyder. So they just pushed Zorn up to head coach. I remember that like vaguely. And that's why I was just kind of thinking, I was like, I thought he was an internal hire. He was sort of.
Well, okay. I think maybe you could hit that on a technicality. But I do want to say one thing. Again, we're going to get deeper into Bienimey / Howell. And we're going to praise Bienimey quite a bit. Deservedly so. His track record is very good. I do want to point out one thing before we get into his good track record. When he went after his stint with the Vikings as running backs coach, when he had Adrian Peterson as his running back for most of his years, which is great. It was a great tandem. He went back to Colorado, his alma mater, to be the offensive coordinator. At that time, there were 120 Division I or FCS, I think they call it now, teams. What do you think Colorado's offense was ranked in his first year, which was 2011?
85th.
All right, Nathan?
Yeah, I'm going to go bottom third. So whatever the math checks out for that. So probably in that 85 plus range, 75 at the highest, probably.
109.
Yep.
Okay. They were not a good team. They were like 3-10 or something like that. Fine. All right. That was your first year. Let's turn it around. Year 2. Improvement. And can he improve in year 2? Out of 120 teams, where do you think the offense was ranked?
Colorado still? You
Colorado.
said 109?
They went from 109 to what?
102.
120. They were
Worst
the absolute worst offense in the entire country with Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator. Okay? That's college. That's a small sample size compared to everything else he did in the pros. So I just want to point that out, that you can have bad periods or bad years,
and
you're going to lose your job, even when you're like coming home to your alma mater, which should give you free pass after free pass after free pass. That didn't work out for him in that situation. He came back to the NFL with the Chiefs, and we all know what happened over the last 10 years with the Chiefs. So just kind of keep that in mind when we're singing his praises, rightfully so.
Gus Bus says we might be overhyping EB. Do you think that's what we're all getting ashburned right now? I mean, I think we're all very excited, and there's I think a lot to be excited about. Kind of what we talked about. There's hope that we have here with Eric Bieniemy. It's just seeing some of the things Kansas City brought to the table. And Stoner, you have a few more other stats on the EB side, outside of the ones that are saying, hey, cool your britches. Get us fired up, Stoner. Get us fired up with a good stat now.
All right. So, of course, when he was the running backs coach in Minnesota, like we talked about before he went back to Colorado. So this is his first jobs in the NFL. His rushing offense was 17th, 1st, 5th, 13th, and 10th. For those last 4 years, he had Adrian Peterson. Okay, so is it Adrian Peterson or is it the rushing attack? Whatever. We have this debate all the time. I always go back to the Cowboys of the early 90s. Was it Troy Aikman or was it Emmitt Smith? Or was it the offensive line? Or was it Norv Turner? Or was it Jimmy you know what I mean? Was it Michael Irvin? Blah, blah, blah. You can go on and on with that stuff. Yeah, exactly. You can go on and on and on and on with that stuff. But you just can't deny that you as a coach coached a player / group and they had tremendous success. And that's what happened. We've all seen the video of him talking to Adrian Peterson in the huddle and really giving it to him and then kind of going at each other because he holds guys accountable. So that's a really good stat. Then he goes to Kansas City, right? And he was the running backs coach from 2013 to 2017. So what was their ranking in rushing? They were 10th, 6th, 15th, and 9th. So they were top third almost every year. And with running backs like Spencer Ware, Charkandrick West, Jamal Charles, who was very good for a short period of time, Kareem Hunt in his rookie year. So he had that rushing room in great shape. And that's probably what helped Alex Smith, who had his best years at quarterback when EB was the running backs coach. And then he gets promoted offensive coordinator. Just happens to coincide when Patrick Mahomes starts. And of course, their offense was, in the 5 years he was there, first, sixth, first, third, first. Okay, again, is it Patrick Mahomes? Is it Bienimey? Is it Reed? Is it the Tyreek Hill? Is it Kelsey? Is it the offense? You know what I mean? But you can't deny what he brings to an offense is unparalleled success at the professional level. And those stats bear it out. And there's nobody who can look at any of his play designs and say, I'm not sure about this guy. Maybe we're overhyping him. Because we're not. His success, you can't deny the success that he's had.
Now, how much of that success there is Andy Reid? You brought up Jamal Charles, so I wanted to see something here. Jamal Charles was a very successful running back in 2009, 2010, and 2012, all pre-Eric Bieniemy. But, I mean, he did have 2 good years there, 2013 and 2014, before finding himself injured and then away on Denver and Jacksonville, also kind of getting up there in age. 29 and 30 years of age by that point. So how much of it is Eric Bieniemy's offense and how much of it is Andy Reid? And are we being too focused on that when any one of the Shanahan trees, we always get excited about somebody from a Shanahan tree? Shouldn't we be excited for this Andy Reid? Maybe just a little bit of it comes with Eric Bieniemy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think also we're upset because of the Sean McVay, the Kevin O'Connells, and the Matt LaFleur's. They weren't what they were when they were with us now. So it's like, okay, we didn't know they were going to go off and be this successful when they went away. They just happened to be successful. So I think we're caught up in that a little bit. It wasn't like they were extremely successful. We just let them go out the door for nothing to do something, the same thing somewhere else. But we've seen from the outside looking in, Eric Bieniemy and his success. The stats that Stoner just read from Colorado, if you followed him all the way from his whole career from the early days, his chief stats as a running back coach and then as an offensive coordinator, like nothing but proven success. So, of course, and it's now we have that in our possession. So we should be super excited because we've seen it before. It's not like we didn't see it and then all of a sudden just happened somewhere else. It's like, oh, man, we used to have him. But, yeah, but Sean McVay was a tight ends coach. Okay, so it's not like he was offensive guru here. Kevin O'Connell was a quarterback's coach, and he had Kirk Cousins and the whole slew of other different quarterbacks. So he really didn't have consistency as his position of coaching. So it's just Eric Bieniemy is a shiny new toy, and we've been looking for shiny new toys, just like with the Josh Owner thing. We've seen Danson Snyder fail over and over and over again as an owner. So now we should be excited for somebody else to come replace him. Same thing for Eric Bieniemy. We've seen Scott Turner and the John Gruden, the Jay Grudens and everybody else has been OC here. Now we see somebody who's proven themselves as a shiny new toy. Let's have them. So I don't think we're overhyping it at all. I think we have every right to be excited. And I think it's not Ashburn at all. It's actually legit hope because of the success path.
So if we're not overhyping them, if we're just being the right amount of hyped, what is Stoner? What is the biggest number one thing that you're excited about what he brings or what he could potentially do with this team?
I think that's pretty easy. I think it's his ability to take special players and design plays to allow them to do what they do best. When he had special players in Kansas City, obviously at the quarterback position, but you can't deny that. Patrick Mahomes may go down as the greatest quarterback ever when he's done. But he had a guy like Tyreek Hill, who was tiny, there are guys, I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I say this, but there are guys who have been just as fast and just as quick as Tyreek Hill that have played in the NFL. We can go.
A lot of them didn't have hands though. So, I mean, that's
sure. But he's designed an offense to take advantage of those skills. So he designs motions, he designs plays to get guys open, very simple, and get them in their best position to make plays. And he did it when Hill left. And by the way, one year when Hill was hurt, he said, well, Travis Kelce's special. Let me design this offense to get Travis Kelce the ball as much as possible and let him cook. And that's what he does. So he's got to be able to look at this offense and say, I've got a special player in Terry McLaurin. Look at Terry McLaurin's stats over the 4 years he's been in the NFL, and you can match them up with any of the top 10 receivers in the NFL, and then look at his quarterbacks that he's had to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
At least 10 different quarterbacks that he's had throwing the ball. I think with if you count Fitzpatrick for a quarter and a half, I think it's 11. Or whatever. It's an obscene amount of different quarterbacks, and he's still in the top 10 in receivers. So he's got to make Terry McLaurin a Ty Hill. That's a different skill set, but I'm just saying in terms of figuring out the ways to get Terry McLaurin in space and take advantage of his skills. We've seen Terry break tackles all the time, make guys miss all the time, make contested catches. We don't want him making contested catches. We want him in the open field moving around. And then look at the other guys. Let's look at Antonio Gibson. Everybody's been saying for years, Nathan's the leader in this that says,
I'm surprised I don't have a Gibby jersey, honest to goodness, because I've been on the Antonio Gibson from day one.
Nobody doubts Gibson's talent. It just hasn't been taken advantage of or
utilized.
Utilized. Thank you, Trev. That's the right word. Those are, I think, the two guys that he's got to figure out how to get those guys open in space. So that's what he's got to do in order to prove his worth and to show what he can do as a coordinator.
I'm going to add to that.
Yeah.
I think you got to add Logan Thomas in there too. Just for how he used Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, Blake Bell, who was a former quarterback turned tight end. I think if you add the tight end to Terry McLaurin and Gibby, then that will be the complete what he needs to what you were talking about, what he brings. Also, what I think is important, what he brings to us, accountability and the way he coaches. There's been time after time we've gone to training camp, we've seen footage, offensive coordinators just stay on the sideline, ho-humming. They might be creative mindsets at times, but they're just ho-humming like, oh, we'll fix it later, or, so you threw a pick, oh, well, stop throwing picks, but all of a sudden we're here right now is he's getting in there, what, in practice, in OTAs. The pads hadn't even been on. He's out there coaching like it's his last time he's going to get this chance to do that. And I think that's really translating into our players, not only offense, but defense. Mm-hmm. The detail, pay attention to details, the perfection, the constant repetitiveness of drills. If you mess it up, like it's not just, oh, we'll fix it later. No, we're going to beat this dead horse until you understand. You know what I mean? So I just think that we haven't seen that, at least I haven't, for a long time. I think that will translate to go along with the schemes that he's creating.
Yeah, I think some of those are really big there. Tougher Guy is saying attitude is the easy number one reason there. There's some talk on, from the code talker about the West Coast style offense not requiring super great players and just being able to fill out in the right spots and everything. And Stoner, you were going to tail off of his, but I wanted to make sure we got to some of those comments like Jay here with Dotson and McLaurin being fed. That to me, when you're talking about Logan Thomas, Trev, is going to be interesting to see where the tight ends come in when you have two great wide receivers.
Right.
Where do the tight ends, like if there's only one ball, you're only going to have, probably 30 pass attempts a game. And so where is it being distributed? Because you want your your money makers to hit pay dirt and to get the
Maybe red
ball
zone.
often. And Logan Thomas should probably be the 4th or 5th option at best.
Right. I totally.
Well, yeah, I agree. Yes, for sure.
I think the tight end position, and Trev mentioned it about Logan Thomas. I'll be honest. I don't need Logan Thomas to catch any balls. Okay. I need the tight end position to be an effective weapon. And I don't think Logan Thomas is that guy. Logan Thomas is, Nathan, he is what?
Decidedly mediocre.
He is.
Which is fine.
He's he doesn't have the skill set that some of these better tight ends. He doesn't even have the skill set.
He's also older, coming off injury. There's a lot of reasons. I like Logan Thomas.
Right.
People overhype him. His best season had 600 yards. Like, I mean,
but that was a good season. Like, we used him in the red zone, crucial third downs. If we like, that's
6'5", an absolute like he's an athlete. I mean,
I'm not asking him right here to make some moves like Travis Kelce. I'm not asking to break ankles. Just
right.
Maybe run the same design routes, and just catch the ball. But
on the Travis Kelce front, because this actually goes into one of the things I'm very excited, kind of the scheme aspect as well. Before the show today, I watched Travis Kelce. Was interested to see specifically how they involve him in the screen game, because the screen game is something I'm looking forward to coming back with Eric Bieniemy here in Washington, because Washington's been abysmal these last 2 or 3 years at the screen game. And I wanted to see whether or not they would use the tight end in there. Of course, Travis Kelce is an otherworldly player, and Logan Thomas isn't Travis Kelce, but I wanted to see it there. But I watched Travis Kelce take like an 80-yard or take a screen 80 yards for a touchdown. Now the blocking was beautiful. By the way, quarterback there was Alex Smith. That's how long ago this was. But I mean, it was just amazing to watch and seeing where our players are going to get some of this timing and space. And yes, Gus Bus, West Coast offense is timing, and the blocking we're not sure how this offensive line is going to hold up. But again, I'm going to look to a couple years ago when Washington schemed around getting the ball out quicker and doing things like that, they had an offensive line that was ranked fairly highly, because you're not going to make too many mistakes in 2 to 3 seconds. So if the ball's coming out quick and the ball's getting in space, I think that the offensive line should be able to hold up just fine. It's if we start doing these 7-step drops, or if we're constantly looking to do these late developing plays, that now we're having to rely on Sam Howell, who is a first-year starter, to be Patrick Mahomes. And there's one Patrick Mahomes. There might be Caleb Williams in the future who has a lot of similarities and just working off script. But right now there's one guy in the NFL who does that, and that's Patrick Mahomes. And Sam Howell, as much as I'm a Howler, I don't want to put the pressure on him there. And so you do these things like get a quality screen game. We talked with Pete Haley, Washington Declassified actually has a video out where they break down some of these. I haven't watched it yet, but get out there. I've got it saved on my watch list. Those guys, Brian and crew, do a wonderful job out there in Declassified. So make sure you support their channel as well. But the screen game, we have one of the fastest wide receiver rooms, 1, 2, 3 in the NFL. And to use that, you have to get them in space or get them the ball early and then let them run. But you also need to work on that blocking and who's going to be out there. And this is probably the one thing that scares me a little bit when it comes to the Washington wide receiver room is our guys aren't big guys. So they're kind of at a disadvantage when it comes to blocking. So maybe that's where Logan Thomas comes in. Maybe that's where Cole Turner comes in, is you get them out there and then you kind of rotate who gets the screens or just the misdirection. I watched another wonderful Kansas City play where they had all the motion going one direction and Philadelphia all went with the motion, and it was just an easy dump pass for a touchdown,
and
5 yards out
because in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And those are the things I want to see come to Washington and for them to be successful. So we'll see if it happens, but that's what I'm hopeful. And that's what I think he will bring here, is kind of a change of pace in that mindset. I mean, he's not Scott Turner. He is Eric Bieniemy. So his mindset is what I'm most excited about.
And you can have Eric Bieniemy draw up incredible plays. Like, look, Scott Turner can draw up plays. He's a professional offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. He knows what he's doing in terms of drawing up plays. Calling plays, that's a whole nother thing. But you can have him develop and create an offense, but if you don't have the players who are going to be able to execute those plays, then a lot of this stuff's not going to work. If you have your entire offense going to one side, as Nathan talked about, like in the Super Bowl that Kansas City did, everyone's going right, and then you just leave one guy going out left. Well, if that's Logan Thomas and John Bates and Chris Rodriguez all going to the right, there's going to be 4 or 5 guys staying left because that's not a threat. It's not a scary threat. True. But if you have Gibby and McLaurin and Dotson all going right, the whole team's going right, and then you've got Curtis Samuel sitting out there on the left side or something to that effect. That's what Bienimey does, but you have to have the talent to be able to force teams to adjust, and that's when you take advantage of it. You have those plays where you're dumping it off to Samuel for 8 yards. You're dumping it to McLaurin for, a short pass for 9 yards, a screen pass. We all talked about Bienimey's big on screen plays. A screen pass to Brian Robinson for 14. And now you got the safeties coming up. Now you got the linebackers coming up because we're just gouging them at the line of scrimmage. And then B-Rob goes for 7, sweep right or whatever. Bro. And then all of a sudden, Terry McLaurin goes deep. Everybody's coming up, and you just throw it over the top to Terry McLaurin. And it really is kind of as simple as that. You just have to be able to execute, and you have to have the talent to execute those plays. But most importantly, you have to have the offensive coordinator to be able to say, we're going to figure out how to get our playmakers the ball and put all the pressure on the defense to stop them. And that's what he should be able to do. So is he overhyped? No, I don't think so. I think he is very good at what he does, and hopefully it translates here as long as the quarterback can execute.
Hey, don't you worry about a thing with him.
I just want to point out, and as a great transition as this is, because Sam Howell's getting a lot of love right now. His quiet leadership, which is something that Carson Wentz had, but was not praised for. But his teammates right now are coming out. Jahan Dotson has this wonderful video interview out right now where he talks about Sam Howell and him and just dotes on him. And it looks genuine. Like some people you can see, like when they're being interviewed by some players that like kind of go into that mindset of like, okay, now I got to say these canned things. Yeah. Jahan Dotson was talking about how he's going to explode for a great year. And he knows that because he has a guy like Sam Howell who can put the ball in places where he's not. And I mean, granted, Jahan Dotson's not exactly worked with some great quarterbacks in his time in college and his time here in Washington, but he's putting the ball in places where he's not seeing QBs being able to do. And he's doing those small things that are getting him ready for the NFL season. Trav, I know you're buying. I'm buying. Stoner's been on the fence.
I'm getting sick and tired of him being on this daggone fence.
I have not been on the fence. I've been very clear with my position.
There was a couple episodes where you were on the Howell train.
No, I'm on the Hope Howell train, but no, I'm not on the fence.
Come on, you got to be a Howler with us, Stoner.
So what? You want Jacoby Brissett to take to week 1?
No, I don't. I'm not saying what I want. I'm saying what I believe is to be true.
Stoner says this every year, right? Yeah, fantastic. Here we go. Stoner's going to say this every year. He wants all the players to be the best that they can be. That's never, ever in question with Stoner. He wants them to be successful. He is the resident pessimist of the three of us, Trav.
Man, that's not fair. Pessimist is not fair. Because
Trev is absolutely the one who is always
17 and up.
Pie in the sky. Trev's always pie in the sky. I'm the fence sitter normally, and that means Stoner, you're the pessimist. Yeah.
I'm the realist that turns out to be right all the time. I was right about all of these quarterbacks and all of these offenses and overall records.
Yeah. And I'm right a lot of times because I give both sides the story, so I can be either right or wrong every time.
And I just give hope and joy.
Until they do bad, and then you trash them, and then like 5 minutes later, you're back on the hope train. I love it. I love it. Yeah, Michael Stoner is not a pessimist. He's saying that he's a realist. We get it. And there's a lot to be real about. And Sam Howell, historically, quarterbacks don't do well in the fifth. And Jahan Dotson brought up the whole he was supposed to be a first rounder thing, which was interesting. It's interesting that they bring that up. I don't buy into that as much. I'm with Stoner in the fact that fifth rounders don't tend to do very well. And
we'll be just fine.
I'm excited for Sam Howell because I've seen the things that he can do. And honestly, and this banks a lot onto it, if he does turn out to be the guy, then Washington's got their guy on a rookie contract, and you can build this roster and you can make the attempt. There's a lot of hope there from me on the burgundy and gold glasses. And so, but yes, I'm also not the one who's predicting him to have 50 touchdowns like Patrick Mahomes did his first full year as a starter.
No.
Well, if you did, then you might have to retire, not just from there. You might have to retire from RefTheDistrict because we'd have to check you into a mental facility. So there isn't anybody who's going to be predicting him to have 50 touchdowns. I mean, that's just
he's going to have 20 at least.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably go out there and throw 20 with Bienimey and these weapons.
Heineke got 20 touchdowns. So, I mean, I would definitely expect there to be some buzz. Be careful. EP might be watching, and she might not like snakes, but she certainly loves that bee. Now,
and if you are watching, by the way, sorry Nathan to interrupt. If you are watching, hit that like button. We'd appreciate that. We haven't. You guys are slacking on the like clicks, so click on that for us. Much appreciated.
Click on that.
Well, I mean, they're
absolutely hit that like button. Michael's saying 35. Sam, says Sam Howell's capable of throwing 50 touchdowns. Allison Howell was a first round pick when he had wide receivers.
Exactly.
Wide receivers now, He also had a line then. Questionable whether or not Sam Howell has a line right now.
He does.
And CJ saying somebody has to be the bad guy. Why not you, Stoner? Stoner's got a bad take later. We'll get to that. We'll save that for
boring
later.
would this show be if it was just three guys saying, "Yep, Sam Howell's going to be awesome. Talk to you next week."
One of the things that makes us a great show is the banter back and forth. Yes. Let's go with our man Jahan Dotson here because he was talking up Sam Howell. We've talked a lot of Sam Howell over the last couple of weeks here. Jahan Dotson is expecting a breakout season, which you want all players to kind of have that mindset. Now, we shared some interesting stats with people when it came to his rookie year. We asked the question on Twitter, who had the more targets and catches between Logan Thomas and Jahan Dotson? Trev, do you know the answer?
It's got to be Jahan Dotson.
Ooh, a lot of people thought that. But a lot of people also went the reverse because they're like, well, you wouldn't be asking this question if it was Jahan Dotson, right? And it in fact was Logan Thomas. They had the same amount of targets. Logan Thomas had 4 more catches. Now, the biggest difference here, and Stoner, go ahead and give out those stats here, and then I'll give my 2 cents on it. How's that? Stoner, you muted yourself. This is what happens when he has a fire water with him.
I got a fire water. Sorry about that. Yeah. So he had both of them had 61 targets. Each of them did. Now Dotson missed 5 games. Logan missed 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
So Logan had 2 extra games, but they had the same amount of targets, 61. Logan had 39 catches, and Jahan had 35 catches. Now, of course, Jahan had 2 big advantages. or two big statistical advantages in that he had a lot more yards, so his yards per catch were a lot higher, and then he had 7 touchdowns, 7 out of his 35 catches. So every 5 times he caught a ball, he caught a touchdown. And Logan had only the 1 touchdown last year. So was Dotson much more effective as a receiver? Absolutely. But he had less catches than Logan did in the same amount of targets and almost the same amount of games. He had a couple more games, but still. That's surprising. We all thought Jahan Dotson had this incredible year as a rookie. And statistically, touchdowns, he had an incredible year for a rookie. Everything else was average, below average even for a rookie, statistically.
Now you're mixing a couple things up here, so I'm going to call you out for it. So,
okay,
as far as a rookie wide receiver, he had absolutely not a stellar year. I mean, he wasn't an offensive rookie of the year finisher or anything like this. Now he was on that pace early on, but he didn't have below average numbers. He had absolutely average to above average numbers across the board for a rookie wide receiver. Now, when you're comparing him to Logan Thomas, yes, his numbers weren't, no one thought Logan Thomas had a great year, but we looked at Jahan Dotson as a good year. I mean, there were some expectations built in this. There are different, position groups as well, tight ends to wide receivers, which is where you account for the yards, 523 for Jahan Dotson to 323 for Logan Thomas. Now, the reverse of that is interesting. The touchdowns, normally you'd expect the 6'5" guy to have more touchdowns, but it is what it is. The yards per target, 8.6 for Jahan Dotson, 5.3 for Logan Thomas. He's just getting the ball out further to Jahan Dotson, which is another thing.
How much yards per catch for Dotson?
For not yards per catch, yards per target, 8.6.
Yards per target, thank you. Okay,
yeah, 8.6 and then 5.3 for. I think the targets is important because it tells you kind of where they're being looked at on the field, right? And you're looking at Jahan Dotson further away from the line of scrimmage than you are looking at a Logan Thomas here. So yeah, he had. I think I remember before the season taking a look at what we can expect from Jahan Dotson. And you expect them to be anywhere between 30 and 70 catches, and then anywhere between 300 and 900 yards is what I think it was. Is like your average, typical wide receiver numbers for rookie receivers. So he's very much in the mix for all of that.
Very average.
Yeah, not outstanding. Touchdowns wise, he was outstanding. Like I said, 1 in every 5. But that was also missing 5 games. You can extrapolate a little bit and, give him a couple extra boosts, but I think he still finds himself on that average. Now, this year, it's going to be a little different. He's with EB. He's with Sam Howell. A lot of people, like the Coat Talker here, are expecting Dotson to be wide receiver 1 by the end of the year.
Woo! Do we have like a timeout corner that we put somebody in for like a minute or something like that? Because that's a little off the. I mean, that's a little crazy.
I'm trying to find the right button for that kind of take. And I mean, a lot of people. I think Stoner would probably go with that one. Did you get the rim shot or trombone on that one?
I go with this one.
The laughter, the laughter's pretty good. A lot of people think it though, and Gus Bus is asking what constitutes a breakout year: 60, 80 receptions, 1,000 yards. My question is even further to those people who think that Dotson could be wide receiver 1 by the end of the year. What does that look like? Because we've talked about kind of where his season should be. And, Stoner, you thought that some of us were crazy with how many catches that we thought he was going to have and how many yards and stuff. I want to know from you guys, what does it look like if Jahan Dotson is wide receiver 1 by the end of the year? We're going to start with you, Trev.
What's it look like if he's wide receiver 1 by the end of the year? 5-11, 6-10. Weird. He's a small, tiny.
Weird would be it. The record part I didn't think about. I mean, I guess if he's wide receiver 1, maybe that's not a good year for Washington.
Nah, dog. I mean, he's a good receiver, but his size is not wide receiver one size.
Well, I mean, Ty Hill is smaller than him. And Ty Hill was wide receiver one for 4 or 5 years in Kansas City, and he's wide receiver one in.
He's also
Miami.
fast as the speed of lightning.
Sure.
Jahan Dotson. Come on, let's be honest.
Stephon Diggs is small.
Let's be honest, but before he was when he was drafted, we were like, "Who? Jahan Dotson? It's a day 2 wide receiver. We picked him on day 1 or whatever." And now, since he had a great year with Taylor Heineke, we're like, "Oh, wide receiver 1 by the end of the year." I mean, that's pushing it. I mean, he had 7 touchdowns in 11 games, 12 games. That's great, but that's just touchdowns. Like, he doesn't. His yards and catches are not wide receiver 1. I don't know, man. It just wouldn't be.
So you'd think that the world would be turned upside down if he
it'd be weird. Yeah, just be weird.
One thing I think is important to note about that, and maybe it's not so crazy as we kind of ponder it here, is that there's no doubt there's been this connection between Howell and Dotson in the OTAs and in the what do you call it? Not the OTAs, but the mini camp.
Yeah.
There has been a connection there. There's an obvious connection, and teams have shown throughout the years that you can develop a chemistry with a guy and it never goes away. So I think there's that chance that he could become a bigger target.
Yes.
Number 1 target. Why would you go away from Terry McLaurin as your number 1 guy?
When he's proven it with my next door neighbor as a quarterback.
Year after year.
And her name is Aunt Marilyn, and she's pushing 90.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying.
That's exactly right. That would be the problem with this whole scenario, is that you have this incredible talent in Terry McLaurin. It's proven talent. This is not a hope like Dotson quite talent. It's a proven talent. You gave him all this money. Why not continue doing what has been successful in terms of his numbers?
Let's
slow down on the Dotson train.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. But let's give him that go from 35 catches to 60 catches. Okay, so almost doubling, but not quite, because he's going to play in 4 more games. This is all, of course, assuming that he's healthy for 17 games.
Right.
And his yards would go up from, what was it? 500.
Mm-hmm.
What if it goes to 923? So he goes an extra 25 catches for another 400 yards. And I wouldn't even expect the 7 touchdowns either. If he gets to 7, that would be incredible.
Gus Bus says Dotson would need at least 80 catches and 1,200 yards to be wide receiver 1.
Absolutely. I mean, those are wide receiver numbers.
Yes. Yeah. And he's not getting that.
80 might be a little bit low, but I mean, that's factual, right? I mean, if he's wide receiver 1 by the end, it means that he's surpassed Terry in all of the numbers. And assuming both of them play the full 17 games, Trev, I will agree with you a little bit there. The world's kind of turned upside down if that's the case. But if they play all 17 games, and we're talking Jahan Dotson's got 95 catches for 1,400 yards and 12 touchdowns, and Terry's sitting at like 80 catches for 1,100 yards and 5 touchdowns, is that enough to convince you guys that Dotson was wide receiver 1?
No.
He's got 15 more catches. He's got 300 more yards and significantly more touchdowns.
I mean, I would just have to say, what happened to Terry? Did he miss 7 games?
No, I'm saying this is 17 games.
No, he dropped 15 passes. Let's just say they have same targets, but
Terry dropping, I just don't see that happening.
I know, but he also was a body catcher.
For EP, I'll throw in the dig here. I don't. This isn't Logan Thomas. This is Terry McLaurin.
He was a body catcher. He really didn't have a lot of opportunity to do this. Yeah. He was a lot of this.
He is a body catcher. He's almost always a body catcher. Yeah. Even when the pass is up here, he tries to get his body.
Yeah, he gets. Yeah. So
yeah, that's true. But he still catches it. And
Terry McLaurin's
Yeah, and I think I've seen him drop one. I think he dropped a touchdown.
Oh no, he's definitely dropped passes.
Jahan
I'm not
dropped a touchdown too.
Yeah, both of them dropped passes. Both of them have dropped
The
them
sun
from
was in his
Sam
eyes.
Howell,
Remember, he was
actually,
like,
because that was one of the things as far as Sam Howell's first start is both Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson dropped, and you just don't ever see them drop passes like that. So I'm not among those who thinks that Jahan Dotson is going to be wide receiver 1 by the end of the year, but I am with Jahan Dotson and believing that he's going to have a breakout year. And for me, a breakout year would be solidifying himself as wide receiver 2. So if you look at Curtis Samuel's numbers to Jahan Dotson's numbers last year, there's not a distinct line between the two, even though Jahan Dotson missed 5 games and their catches, I think, around the same. But if at the end of the year, at the end of the season, if we have Terry McLaurin with 90 catches and X amount of yards, Jahan Dotson at like 77 catches, and Curtis Samuel at like 50, that to me would be successful and a breakout year, assuming, again, they play all 17 games. What does that look like for you, Trev? What's a breakout season for you with Jahan Dotson?
Probably around the same thing, 60 to 75 catches, 700 and 900 yards receiving, and go ahead and if he's on the same path as he was last year with 7 touchdowns in 7 games, pretty much, go ahead and give him 12.
12. I mean,
bro, his yards after catch, bro.
Yeah,
come on. Nobody saw that spin move coming for a touchdown. Let's be honest.
But his 7 touchdowns were like way high. Okay, Terry's never even had 7 in a year, I don't think.
Well, that's not Terry's fault. Also, he's played with 35,000 quarterbacks.
Okay, well, he had the same issue last year. He had 3 quarterbacks that he caught passes from last year. So I'm just saying that if he gets to 7, I would be very, very surprised.
Rookie year, he had 7 touchdowns, by the way.
Who, McLaurin?
Yeah.
McLaurin. And that's his high, right?
Yeah.
That's his career high is 7.
I mean, if he just needs that quarterback arm strength to get him there. Carson Wentz had arm strength, it's not the accuracy. And
I will say this. This is a little bit of a crazy take. But if Jahan Dotson finishes the year with like 135 targets and McLaurin finishes with like 104 targets, we're going to need to get a new offensive coordinator. Eric Bieniemy is going to have to go because McLaurin should have the majority of targets.
Right, but now they're gonna start doubling Terry, like,
and that was brought up in the comment section, Trev, by a couple of people. A lot of people are going to focus on number 17, and this is where, Stoner, to this thing here now. This point is that yes, they've been doing it for years. He's still got his 1,000 yards. He's had horrible quarterbacks. We know Terry McLaurin is him. What we now have is a wide receiver 2 who could potentially make teams pay for that double coverage that's on Terry McLaurin, which might then also open up Terry McLaurin. But I mean, we had Curtis Samuel 3 seasons ago. We're pretty excited, and then it turns out he's harboring an injury. This year was kind of a wash, and so now we're entering the third year, rather. Now we're entering the third year, and now we have a different wide receiver who could potentially take that that ball to the house. Like when Jahan Dotson's fast, like when we have 3 fast wide receivers and you get the ball to them in space, and we see what happened when they had that this last season. So I think that's going to be the difference.
Well, in theory, I can see what everybody's saying about that, but can you tell me in 3 seasons ago when your quarterback was Haskins, it was Haskins / Alex Smith / what was that donk third, Kyle Allen?
Hey,
right?
Nice.
You had those 3 guys. Who were your other receivers besides
Kyle Allen, not Josh Allen, Trev?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my bad.
Who was the other receivers besides
Cam Sims?
Yeah, you had Cam Sims, and I don't know, was Josh Doxson still there?
No,
at that
No.
point.
He'd been gone.
He had been gone. And who was your running back? I'm sure Gus can look this stuff up for us. But 3 years ago, when Terry was in his second year,
was running back for a little bit.
Yep, the 1 year.
Adrian Peterson was here a little bit
games.
with Dwayne Haskins.
Okay, so Terry
Robert
McLaurin,
Kelly,
who is your most dangerous player, the strategy for the defense would be, okay, let's put 4 guys on McLaurin and everybody else cover the other people because they're just not that good. He still got his. So don't all of a sudden tell me now that you have these extra weapons like Dotson, Jahan Dotson, now all of a sudden they're going to start double teaming and triple teaming Terry McLaurin. No, that's not how it works. You do that when you don't have other weapons. When you have other weapons, that's going to be more for Terry McLaurin. He can eat some more because he doesn't have the safeties rotating over to his side, because now they have to worry about Dotson. Now they hopefully have to worry about screens with Gibby, and they have to worry about Cole Turner / Logan Thomas. So, you know what I mean? The more weapons you have, the more your wide receiver one should eat.
Well, Stoner, why I've got you on kind of the hopeful train, that positive. You're normally very pessimistic, so let me take advantage of this positivity that you're bringing out into the world. Tell me this: who is going to have a bigger breakout season between Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson? Now, I'm not talking the stats here. I'm talking about the bigger breakout season. Does Terry McLaurin cement his status as a top 10? Which would be a breakout. A lot of people consider him in like the top 15, top 20. Now he solidifies himself in top 10, or Jahan Dotson making a name for himself outside of just the fantasy football circles. Which one would be a bigger breakout season for you?
Well, assuming that Sam Howell is the guy, right? That's what I guess we're having to assume this, and Bienimey is
get over it. Yes,
doing what he's supposed to do. Then for sure, it's Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin has to get 150 targets, and he has to catch 115. That's probably a little high. 105 to 110 balls, and have 150 targets. You have to take advantage of the ridiculous talent that you have, and I think that's what Bienemy will design. Will Sam be able to make that happen?
Oh, yeah.
We'll see. But you have to find that talent and you have to take advantage of it. And that's what McLaurin is. We take that for granted, his talent. We just think he's a great dude. He works hard. He gets numbers with bad quarterbacks. That dude is ridiculous in everything that he does, with his route running, with his hands, with his yards after catch.
His speed.
His body control. I mean, there's just everything.
All of it is a ridiculous talent. He just hasn't been able to break out.
Exactly.
I think I'm up to 3 Terry McLaurin jerseys, by the way, at this point. I have one signed. I have one that was given to me as a gift, and I have one that's just mine. So
for sure. So I think that's what that is.
I agree.
By the way, some of the names that were thrown out there was AGG as a wide receiver out there. Chris Thompson was absolutely a big contributor Terry's rookie year. Steven Sims Jr. Yeah, I remember when he was out there fumbling punts away. Lots of players fumbling the ball and the bag, as it seems, as the NFL is expected to suspend even more players for violating the league's gambling policy. They have 6 key rules here. Don't bet on the NFL. Don't gamble at your team facility while traveling for a road game or staying at the team hotel. Don't have someone bet for you. Don't share team inside information. Don't enter a sports book during the NFL playing season, and don't play daily fantasy football.
So bottom line, don't gamble.
It seems like the answer is just don't gamble, but Isaiah Rodgers looks to be joining Calvin Ridley, CJ Moore, Quintez Cephas, and our own Shaka Toney that had gotten at a year-long ban. There's also 2 wide receivers, Jameson Williams and Stanley Berryhill, who got 6 games. What should the NFL do, gentlemen, when it comes to the gambling I don't want to say problem, but the gambling situation within the NFL. A lot of these players, by the way, on the younger end, which I think
do
is
exactly what they're doing. Keep suspending them. I mean, don't change nothing. Don't make it to where you can beat around the bush and bet here or go through this door to bet here secretly. Nah, keep everything intact and keep doing what you're doing with the discipline. I mean, that's the only way they'll learn.
Yeah, man, it's a tough thing to try and figure out because gambling, I mean, just think about 10 years ago how taboo gambling was just in society in general, and especially in the sports world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about all the teams that would never go to Vegas, relocate to Vegas, just because of the gambling implications. And now you have an NFL team there, an NHL team there, a baseball team is probably going there. And within 10 years, I think there'll be an NBA team there as well. And now it's everywhere. I mean, the NFL has sponsors, for crying out loud, that are sports books.
Mm-hmm.
So they just have to figure out what that line is. And I think they did. And whether or not they're communicating that line properly to the teams, that's for them to figure out. But yeah, you just have to draw a line, and wherever that line is, you listed in there like 6 different things. So just don't cross that line. You cross that line, it's just like anything else. Here are the rules for steroids or performance enhancing drugs. Here are the rules. You cross them, you're in trouble. You get suspended. And as long as they're laid out properly, I don't have any problem in how they deal with it. There is no double standard just because they're sponsored by sports books and everything. I don't think there's a double standard. You have to keep the integrity of the game, or else it'll just be the most corrupt game out there, and then everybody loses. So yeah, draw the line, stick to the line. That's good for me.
That's fair. I couldn't resist that segue, which is why I went there. It is the situation surrounding Shaka Toney, maybe not as disappointing for some people as it was for me, because I believed that he could turn a corner as a pass rush specialist. But I do know other people are disappointed in what we're going to be talking about next, which is Hard Knocks not coming to DC. Maybe. And also Richmond is off table for training camp in the future years. All that's coming up here in the Cool Down. Stick with us.
The Cool Down is brought to you by Manscaped. Ever since my Nathan started using their products, I can't cool down. Fellas, trust me. Go to Manscaped right now and get 20% off and free shipping by using the code REF. Your ladies will appreciate you. Now back to Trev, Stoner, and my Manscaped man, Nathan.
That's right. Head out to manscaped.com. I know that's an old picture. I got to get the new picture up with the retired beard going. I need to head out to manscaped.com, use the code REF, get myself 20% off, free shipping, and get that beard trimmer. I did not get it for Father's Day. That's all right. We're in the middle of transition. I'll have to wait till
that boo button
in the new house. But definitely get that trimmed up a little bit. I use the nose trimmer all the time, and you guys don't want to hear about me using the other ones, but they have some great products out there, shampoos, soaps, everything that you need out there. Manscaped.com. Use the code REF. That's R as in ref, E as in F, and F as in F. Get yourself 20% off and free shipping. But yeah, definitely. I was thinking that when that video came up, I was like, oh man, I need to update that photo. I don't even look the same anymore. Yeah. Before we get into the Hard Knocks and the Richmond training camp situation, we do want to talk about the Washington Capitals selecting Ryan Leonard, right winger from Team USA under 18 team, with the 8th overall pick. Stoner, as the resident Caps expert and big time fan, what do you think of the pick?
The guy they really wanted, which was a Russian stud, went 1 pick right in front of him to Philadelphia. There were rumors that Washington was going to want to move up to try and get this guy because they knew there was a couple of teams up there, but they didn't. They stuck with him. They need an infusion of young talent. So this is going to be a guy I think they can plug in almost right away. We'll see how many years it's going to take him to come up. But a number 8 pick in the draft is usually somebody who can help pretty early. And he's a North American, and he's a winger, and they need those guys big time.
All right.
So
we'll
pick.
see how Ryan Leonard does for our caps, and keep tabs on that and the rest of the draft process for the NHL as the season continues as well. Commander Lorian asked me, is this a playoff beard? I guess in a sense, this is postseason for me and my life. So no, it's not off season. It's my postseason as in post career from the Air Force. Okay. So it is here to stay. We've mentioned that in a couple comments on some of the other videos who've been liking the beard. It's here to stay. I hope to trim up the face a little bit, trim up a little bit post retirement as well, kind of lose a little bit of this retirement gut that's come out here as I've been growing the beard, but all in good time. I won't be able to go to Richmond, Virginia, though, for that, as training camp is not going to be on the bucket for Richmond. Now, Trev, this is where we met you. This will always be my memory of Richmond, Virginia, is meeting Trevor Stores at training camp for the Washington football team at the time, and just starting this wonderful friendship and having you here with Ref the District. What is your biggest memory from training camp in Richmond, if it's not that already?
Besides that, I think that was that Jason Wright's like first year or second year? It was something. That training camp was like one of the best training camps. It was more interactive. It's like the beginning of a new era, so to speak.
Talk about hope. We had a lot of hope right then. Tanya Snyder, remember that was I think when you think about first, that was Tanya Snyder's first time out in the public as being the owner, because Dan Snyder had kind of gone away, and there was some buzz around that, and she's like tossing footballs to the fans, and she wasn't getting booed at this point. She was like, there was excitement for her to be there and take over kind of the ownership duties.
I think that was because she was there being interactive. Jason Wright was there being interactive. There were I think a couple more things to do, a couple more food vendors to do at training camp, more places to stand and watch. It's where I met a lot of other content creators as well, like Rio and Parker and the guys from Burgundy Zone and Declassified and all, everybody was there. Josh Taylor, yes, Stoner, you're muted, bro.
Gotta blame Firewater.
I think, did you read my lips?
Yeah, I think so.
You did? Because I said Josh Taylor, and then you're like, Josh Taylor, and you're
Burgundy.
How did you know?
But so not only meeting you guys and starting this incredible journey that we're on right now, but also I think that was like the beginning of kind of the Dan Snyder era coming to an end, because he was already handing the keys over to his wife, as in like, you take this, I'm gonna start my exit. So I think that was my best memory of Richmond, just meeting you guys and the start of a new era.
Yeah, I think
Ryan Fitzpatrick at QB going to take us.
Oh yes, he was running in the end zone like, to win 10 games.
If you can remember, it was because of COVID in 2020. There was no camp for fans and all that. So, and I think that's when Jason was hired. But in 21, that's when they had like their first camp back. So that was our first chance to meet Jason. Chase was coming off his defensive rookie of the year.
Oh yeah.
Fitzpatrick, which we thought we were going to be slinging the ball all over the place.
4,000 yards. Remember that?
Curtis Samuel, he was the top free agent receiver. William Jackson, he was the top corner, a free agent corner.
That seems so long ago.
Right, and it was
Montez
in Richmond.
And Chase Young talking about sack records.
Yes.
And he's in the Tanya issue because Dan had gotten in trouble from the Washington Post. That whole article came out the year. So, but it was an electric atmosphere, and there was a lot of that hope. And then first game, here we are. Yeah, it's just crazy how it can just go from something so. And we got Ashburned. I admitted after that. I said I totally got Ashburned, even though the camp was in Richmond. But the term is Ashburn syndrome. But I loved being down there in that atmosphere. But I mean, Richmond is just so far away, especially for me. it's like 3.5 hours. And I know for Trev, it's probably 3 hours, 2 hours.
Yeah.
Nathan's 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Depending on traffic on 95. Yeah.
And I get it for the Virginia people that it's good for them. I mean, you have to kind of spread the love out for the Commanders and everything. But nobody wants to go down there and like make a week of it or make a weekend of it in Richmond. You can say all you want about Richmond, but I mean, Richmond is not a destination. Okay. Have you guys, you both of you,
804.
You guys have been on vacations all over the country. Have you ever vacationed in Richmond?
No.
Have you
Can't
ever
say I have.
vacationed?
Nope.
Have
Can't
you ever
say I have.
have you ever put it on a list when you were looking at vacationing? Have you ever listed Richmond as a place you wanted to go for a weekend or a
2 hours away?
It's a place I would like to fly out of, maybe, but not.
Yeah, it's a place to leave.
When Trev was younger, 2 hours away, he probably wanted to do that as the bar scene, right? Like that might have been the Richmond bar scene. Probably was a little bit better than Lexington.
I know.
So just stop with the whole you're offending Richmond or whatever.
Nah, dog, we're not.
I don't want to call it a dump, but I have no reason to ever go to Richmond for longer than, unless the Commanders are there. Or
the situation itself it's disappointing because Richmond, I mean, they're going to be paying, I think, $700,000 a year, the taxpayers of Richmond, for still like the future years, because the deal was that kind of Richmond bought the rights for them to come down and do training camp, and it just didn't work out quite the way that the Richmond thought. No, I think they're paying for that facility.
Like
yes. Well, what I liked about that was that it was a designated space for something. And so that's what I want them to return to. I think Ashburn is a great, well, not great. I mean, the players themselves rated Ashburn as a crappy training facility, but I think that's what it's meant for. It's meant for a training facility. It's not meant for a training camp where you bring, us fans out to kind of see practices. It's not really set up that way. It's always frustrating in Ashburn where we go to, watch it, and then they're playing on the far field.
Yeah.
And Richmond, it always got set up so that way it was like they're only there for the week, so you don't have to worry about the turf, because that's the reason. In case you ever wanted to know, we've talked with the staff about it. They have to rotate, so otherwise one field gets done dirty, and they're opening up a lot of OTAs and training camps, so if it's always by the fans, that field's just going to be mud. So they kind of have to rotate as they care for the yard and everything. And Richmond, they didn't have to worry about that, so the playing was always by the fans. And like they would do some drills on the far end, but you got to see the 7-on-7, you got to see the 11-on-11, you got to see the wide receiver, one-on-ones versus the CBs. And that was exciting. And I think that Richmond area for that was great, like the build up for that. And so Richmond specifically, you're right. I'm not going to necessarily miss Richmond specifically, but I do want them to look at opportunities until they build the next training facility to bring it out of Ashburn, because Ashburn's not really that easy to get to either. I tend to just take the Silver Line, and Silver Line's gotten a little further up there out and just kind of, take a taxi the rest of the way. So that the Richmond aspect, I'm not like, when it comes to Richmond itself, I'm not going to go as far as Stoner and dog the place. But I don't necessarily need it to be Richmond. Make it somewhere else. I mean, you could put it all the way down in North Carolina, and I would still go to it as a destination thing, take a week off and be down there. I mean, I don't have to take a week off now because I'm retired, but the point still stands that I want that to come back. And so where would you guys, if not Richmond, because that's not going to happen anymore at Richmond, Trev, where would you like them to hold training camp outside of Ashburn?
Outside of Ashburn?
Outside of Ashburn.
Ooh. Come on down here, Lexington, if you want to, bro.
Right? That's not a bad idea.
I guess we're going to keep it in that general area. Arlington, maybe, or Fairfax, or
some
Manassas,
Nova.
something Nova.
So still a Nova. That's interesting. I was thinking
you already got to drive to Maryland for the games. Like, just go ahead and we make you guys drive to Virginia for camp, and you make us drive to you guys for games. So there's that.
Michael bringing up the Pennsylvania years when they used to have training camp up in Pennsylvania.
West Virginia, that'd be cool. There's nothing in West Virginia. Just come there. And
well, they have that West Virginia.
Mountains.
They've got that resort where don't some teams haven't some teams gone
Saints,
there?
When Drew Brees was playing during his last years, they were there.
Yeah, some teams have gone
there a couple times, I think. So it's just nice, beautiful mountain scenery. Like, that's a nice vacation spot.
Are you going to switch then to West Virginia, or are you going to stick with Nova, Trev?
I'm gonna go West Virginia.
All right, Smoky Mountains, Stoner. Where are you going to be?
Let's go to the Poconos in Pennsylvania. Let's go
back
all the
to
way
Pennsylvania.
up there, man. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it matters. Like you said, Nathan, the setup. Give me the setup in Richmond or something similar to that setup. Give me that anywhere, wherever it is. Give me that setup. Don't give me the Ashburn setup.
Right.
You can put the Richmond setup in Ashburn, and I'd be okay with that. That was a great setup, man. They had merch everywhere. They had places like vendors. For former players would come in and just hold court in an area where they could sign stuff. And just,
the VIP area it was a little bit more feasible. Like I think you got a little bit more interaction with the fans. There's a VIP area in Ashburn, but it's like away from where you're going to actually get the interaction. So I think that setup is great. And as far as location, actually, I think that, Michael, now that you bring up the Pennsylvania one, that would be kind of one of those neat things to kind of harken back to the Redskins days, right? Like, they like to have these ties to the past. Maybe that's one of those things they can do, is just go back up and host it up in Pennsylvania for a year. Again, I think the end goal for this is that they're going to build a stadium complex with a training facility nearby, and that's going to be where we will end up going, which means it will be kind of a destination type event here in DC, which is great, I think, because there's a lot to do in DC, not just the training camp. But I mean, if they're going to go outside and not going to be in Richmond, then I think I like your guys' idea of the West Virginia, Pennsylvania side of the house. I think that they personally would go further south, though. I think that they would maybe have it out there by Busch Gardens or something like that in the Virginia area, Williamsburg. That might be a good area.
I think also it's kind of cool to point out. Well, first, I hate giving the Cowboys any sort of praise, but the Cowboys setup that they have for their training facilities and all that, that's what we need to have.
Yeah, that's their goal. I mean, if you've seen all the plans, that's absolutely the goal, is for them to have this one-stop shop for them, and then also have kind of a community that they're going to build within there. A lot of people, David, Commander Lorian, talking about that, taking that RFK site, making it RFK Junior. Michael pointing out RFK site isn't enough space. Yeah, it's not enough space. So there isn't really a whole lot of space in Ashburn for cameras to be set up either, which might not be a problem, as Hard Knocks seems to be headed to New Jersey with the New York Jets. You two have been just openly pining for Hard Knocks. We've asked Jason Wright personally on this channel, and he kind of gave us the catbird look and was just like, can't say anything about that, but kind of looked like he wanted it. Of course, no team volunteered, which means it's going to go to one of 4 teams. Washington is on that list, and the only one of the 4 that didn't outwardly say we don't want it. But it looks like the draw of Aaron Rodgers is going to be too much. How disappointed are you, Trev, that Hard Knocks is not coming?
Super disappointed. If this rumor is true, because so far it's a rumor. If this rumor is true, boring. It shows somebody who chose to go hide in the dark for 4 days and then sign with the team. And that's it. Other than that, what did they do this offseason? Nothing. For us, like, we have new ownership, new offensive coordinator, new franchise quarterback possibility. Ron Rivera, his coaching season is on the line. we have so many more things that more appealing for entertainment purposes for Hard Knocks than the New York Jets. I'm very disappointed. It's going to be boring to watch them during Hard Knocks. I mean, we can watch Aaron Rodgers talk the way he does on Pat McAfee or after the game, so we don't need Hard Knocks for that. Unless they dive into his darkness behind the scenes, I don't care to watch Hard Knocks. I haven't watched it yet because of the teams. They've all been boring.
Really?
Stoner, you watch a lot of Hard Knocks.
I love Hard Knocks.
I don't think they tend to focus too much on the star players. It's usually kind of the end of the roster guys that are kind of more dramatic. So what, I know you're disappointed, Stoner.
Look at his face.
What, that disappointment, like you are the one who always teases us for talking about the end of the roster guys. So why were you excited about the Hard Knocks being here, and why are you disappointed if it goes to the Jets if you don't normally want to talk about the Cam Sims of the roster?
Well, I don't like talking about them in terms of what value they bring to wins and losses, because they don't really bring much value to that. But I do like the human interest stories. I do like seeing the behind the scenes guys doing things with their families and their struggles with confidence and maybe even like injuries or whatever it is. I just like seeing that. And like last year in Detroit, they had Aiden Hutchinson, right? He was, he wasn't defensive rookie of the year. He was second because Sauce got that right. But that was really interesting to see him and his family and the background and all that other stuff. And they had, the running back trying to make the roster, and then the linebacker from Oklahoma, the kid that was trying to establish himself, Rodriguez, was his name? I can't remember. But all those stories. So then you just translate that over to Washington. I would love to see the backstories of, let's just say, Jamin Davis and
Mr. Steal Your Girl.
Mr. Steal Your Girl. You know what I mean? Right? And then he would have the talk about Zach Wilson and what they did. That's cool. Yeah. But one of the best pieces of video that we've watched since Eric Bieniemy became coach, and I referenced it earlier in the show, was when he got in Adrian Peterson's face way back in whatever year that was. And he got into him in training camp, and they had like a back and forth, and EB was holding him accountable, your star player, and didn't like him talking back to him. That's the kind of stuff that you'll get in Hard Knocks. And we loved that clip because it showed you his fire, his personality, him holding guys accountable. So that's what I want to see, is more of that.
It's kind of like
not just from him, but the other guys as well.
Like that clip of Ron Rivera at halftime when he was coaching the Carolina Panthers. And he was ripping Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis. Yeah. It wasn't Hard Knocks, I don't think, but it was just a viral clip that came out. I definitely want to see that with Washington. I want to see Jeremy Reeves' story behind the scenes. I want to
Jeremy Reeves, right?
I want to see Chase Young behind the scenes too. I want to
see Way yoking it up.
I want to see Troy Apke.
He's a funny guy.
Of
course you want to see Trapke.
Hey, Trap.
Of course you do. There's a lot to be said about missing those guys. And I think that the Washington Commanders media team's been doing a good job kind of giving us a sense of what it's like with some of their things. But I do agree. It's a disappointing thing because we just want more and more content from the team, and we want to see these behind the scenes things. You brought up the Ron Rivera with the star players. Not only that, there was this Ron Rivera clip where it was, I think, during OTAs, where he kind of goes to the sidelines with kind of a mid-roster guy and talks to him like very humanly. And those are the things that you're going to miss because Washington doesn't. It's looking like reports are that the Jets going to get the Hard Knocks now. Now that's the normal Hard Knocks. There is this new in-season Hard Knocks where you might see some of those things. Do you think that might come to Washington?
I think so. That makes more sense because if this vote happens and passes on July 20th, like it's slated to do, in season, it will be very, very interesting to see how we perform with these new pieces and new ownership in place. And Ron Rivera coaching his last season, possibly Chase Young, not picking up a 5th-year option on him. This could be his last year. You could focus on Emmanuel Forbes too. He was our highly regarded draft pick this season, not only because of his college, but what he's doing in camp. Then you got Ryan Kerrigan, who used to play for us. Now he's a defensive line assistant coach. You could, shadow him a little bit in season for former player to coach after just literally playing the 2 years before that. So, like, I don't know. It's just we have the pieces not only to win games, but to do in-season hard knocks, I think, just because of all the turmoil we've faced for the past 30 years.
Yeah. Well, with the regular hard knocks, you have 4 teams that can be forced to, right? Nobody wants to do it, so there's 4 teams that can be forced to. If you're not one of those teams, I think the in-season one can be anybody. I don't think they have those.
Yeah, there's
restrictions, right?
Yeah.
So let's be honest and take a step back and look at it from the, what do they call it, the 100-foot view or whatever,
View?
Right? And nobody cares about the Commanders outside of Washington. We've been just horrible for 25 years. Why would people be interested in Washington?
The same reason why people weren't interested in Arizona for the end season card.
Right. Did you watch it?
No. Well, Arizona at least had
J.J.
Watt, and they knew that J.J. Watt was potentially going to be in his final season. You have you have a quarterback who is kind of electric. He does play a lot of video games. He's probably playing a lot of Call of Duty right now because he's recovering from you have a DeAndre Hopkins. You have this eccentric coach. Like, there was a lot of reasons for Arizona to be picked.
We got Terry McLaurin though.
Talking about but Terry McLaurin is largely an unknown. I mean, he's only now starting to get his flowers, right? I think that as a producer, as an executive with HBO or Max, or whatever they're called now, I'd probably actually go with Detroit, kind of the follow-up to their Hard Knocks preseason last year. Now see where they've developed, and because you can have these recurring storylines and you can follow up. I think that's probably where the if I were the person making decisions would go. But I get what people are saying. There's no real draw for Washington as far as outside of this area. We're the only ones who know Reeves and his story of being. I mean, he got a lot of play last year when he became an All-Pro, and then even listed as an NFLPA All-Pro, where he, there was all this, like, he's up and down the roster, but no one knows Tressway is like one of the funniest guys in the NFL.
But that's the point of Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
Maybe you give one topic to grab everybody's attention to watch it, and then introduce all these topics. And that one topic could be the Dan Snyder issue that happened this past
I don't think they're touching that.
But I know they're not, but like they could, an owner for 30 years has decided to sell the team. Reports come out, and people, because that's a national story that people all across the NFL league know. But I don't know, man. I just want Hard Knocks.
I know, right? You can make stories. There's no doubt that you can make stories.
Oh, there's always stories.
The Commanders, but when you start out and you tell everybody the in-season Hard Knocks is going to be the Commanders, everyone's going to be like,
well, don't watch it. Don't watch it. We'll watch it.
I know. I want it. I'm with you, Trev. I want it. I'm just saying from the 900-foot view or whatever, again, that cliche is. The 10-foot
keep from 100 to
just
900.
Keep changing the the
1,000-foot view. Nobody cares. And so that's why they would not do it, is what I'm saying. Why the executives at HBO are going to look at that and say, we're not going to get any interest in this. So let's go to the Chiefs. I mean, everybody'd watch it if it was the Chiefs or the Dolphins. With personalities, those teams have personalities that get you, that grab you from the beginning without you even watching it. Washington doesn't have that nationally
yet.
So, I give up.
Has anybody outside of Commanders fan ever even heard of Jeremy Reeves?
That's the point of watching Hard Knocks.
Right, but you're not going to grab them. You're not going to grab them until
that's what I'm saying.
Washington lacks the star power to bring in currently.
That's all.
You got to start with the ownership. You got to. That's the starting point.
We would all like more content on our Washington Commanders.
We're going to get it.
And we would like you to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. This has been episode 127 of Ref the District. We appreciate everyone jumping in there. We had the Hawk TV, Commandalorian Michael. We had Tony, Gus Bus, Jay. Let's see, scroll a little bit further here. A couple different J's. David in the house, TJ in the house. We appreciate everyone jumping in and on the chat. It is the off season, the doldrums. Not a lot going on. We still managed to go almost an hour and 45 minutes with you, but that hinges on you being here with us and having this conversation. We'll be back live next week, 7:30 here on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Of course, you can catch content from us every weekday, Monday through Friday at 7:30. And so we hope that you've been enjoying those daily Commanders updates. Tomorrow's, we'll probably have some Washington Capitals in there as well. So as I said, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and have a happy 4th of July. That will happen Tuesday of next week. So that one might not have a DCU because we might be enjoying festivities and some of that fire water that Stoner's been enjoying as it is. But until next time.
Thank you for your service, Nathan.
Yeah, Nathan,
Yes,
appreciate you, my guy.